Happy September 2024 to the TRS-80 community. This is the second video update from my MIDI interface and MIDI sound card for the TRS-80. I don't have a name yet, I might just call it MIDI 80, right? And for now I'm working on the Model 1 version. The firmware is still not final, and also I still need to write all the software for the TRS-80 Model 1. For now I just have a couple of basic programs running, and for the first time I dared to run MIDI 80 in conjunction with the expansion interface, so just to see if things are going well on the data bus, right? So let's start my little demo program in BASIC here. And previously I showed you simple MIDI out, MIDI note on, MIDI note off messages, and it would just play all the tones on the keyboard, basically using a piano sound, right, which is like a standard general MIDI sound here in this S2 MIDI board, soundboard, right? And now I have a little different demo here where we are testing channel 10. And if you know MIDI a little bit, the MIDI standard, then you know, aha, channel 10, so that sounds like the drum channel, right? And indeed, there it is. I can increase the speed a little bit. It's just printing the pitch, the note number here, right? And then there's a delay loop. And I mean, this is just a very simple, primitive, basic program, right? Let's make it a bit louder. Yeah, I added some blink and light supports now so that we see data bus in and out activity for MIDI, right? Yeah, and it's a very simple program. It's just running a loop, right? And then it sends a MIDI note on message. On this channel I here, I set to 9, which translates to channel 10 then, right, for the drums. And then this is a MIDI note off message, and that consists of 3 bytes. Usually MIDI message is 3 bytes, so I'm just sending this to port 8, right, which is the port to which this card is listening to, right? And there are also input reading is supported, right? So because this is not only a MIDI sound card but also a MIDI interface, right? So you see I have the MIDI DIN connectors here, right, for MIDI in and out. So, and in principle, when the firmware is ready, you will be able to play and record over MIDI into the TRS-80, right? And for that we have to, of course, then read using in8 from the data bus, right, from the buffer on the microcontroller, which MIDI messages have been received, so that we can store them and in the TRS-80. And yeah, there's also port 9. Port 9 is used to check if there is a byte available in the buffer to fetch. And yeah, so the firmware also offers some MIDI soft through, right? So got to show you that next. Oh, before that, let me run another demo program, which is just basically the same drummer. But here I tried, you know, oh no, that's the, I wanted the other one. Still not the program I wanted. This is the simple piano sound, MIDI note on and off. What was the name of that program? Was it MIDI 2? Right. So, happy drumming. And yeah, that's a little bit laggy because it's basic, right? And so yeah, I still need to write a couple of assembler, a machine code assembly language programs so that this runs at a decent speed. And yeah, so those are all the basic programs for now. Another thing that I can show is the microcontroller itself, right, which is a blue pill here, ARM Cortex STM32, infamous microcontroller, right, and inexpensive, so it's like only $4 or $5, which makes a good difference, and it's 5 volts tolerant, some of the input-output ports it has, which is of course important. So another little thing I can show is the MIDI soft through capability, right? So what this microcontroller can do is if you configure the dip switches here accordingly, then it will reroute automatically all incoming MIDI messages into the S2, right? So basically this is like a general MIDI expansion module in this setup, right? And all you need is a MIDI keyboard. So what I have here is my microcorg, right? And so let's power that on. And you see that these LEDs are coming alive now, and this is basically MIDI input, and this means MIDI output to either S2 or the MIDI DIN output. But the blinking basically means that it's receiving now the MIDI clock messages that are being generated by the microcorg, right? And I can turn off here the MIDI clock messages, and so then we see less activity. So MIDI clock turns it off or to external. So now clock is set to external, and you see that there is much less activity, right? There's only an occasional clock sync message now. But the point being, I can just use this now as a general MIDI expander basically. And notice that this is not the microcord making the sound, right, but it's the S2. So MIDI out goes into the DIN port, into MIDI in, into the microcontroller. Then due to the dip switches I have soft through into the S2 enabled, right? But of course the same data can in principle also go now into the TRS-80. If the TRS-80 ports the port, the IO port 9, right? And then it can store the MIDI data, right? And of course we already saw that the TRS-80 can also generate MIDI data, right? Sending it directly via out 8 to S2, but it can also send it to a real, not the S2, but another MIDI, external general MIDI instrument connected to the MIDI DIN socket, right? So that's quite a versatile setup, and it supports all these different MIDI routes, right? Okay, so that's it for now. So I still have a lot of work to do with the firmware, right? See the whole pass MIDI in, and then reading it with the TRS-80 and storing it in memory and playing it back, right? So for the CPC version I had a lot of general MIDI, complex MIDI songs playback from the machine, right? That's not working yet, so I still need to spend quite a bit of time polishing, finessing the firmware. But for now, you know, that's some initial progress. Yeah, happy Septendi.